You're listening to Overdoing It, the Rhode Island Library podcast. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Overdoing It, where our team of library workers dish about their latest reads, views, and passions alongside fascinating conversations with local luminaries. I'm your host, Lauren Walker, Director of the Coventry Public Library, and my pronouns are she, her. Let's dive in and see who my guest is today.
Hello, my name is Charlotte Abotsi, and I am the 2026 Honorary Chair of Reading Across Rhode Island.
Thank you for joining me. A little bit later in the show, we'll talk all about reading across Rhode Island and Charlotte's work around the state. But before we get to that, let's start out as we always do with what have you been reading and watching?
Ooh, I love this question. I actually just finished Let the Poets Govern, A Declaration of Freedom by Kimon Felix, which is a collection of, I would say, it's memoir, it's essays, it's a book of nonfiction. And what's most special about this collection, I feel, she's a poet, and also has a background in strategy and political communications. And this book is about her giving that up and then saying, actually, how we treat language and how we use words and the word in systems and in systems of power is wrong. And we can do so much better by each other, for each other, if we challenged ourselves to really think about the words we speak, the words we share, and the words we write. And in addition to my work as honorary chair for Reading Across Rhode Island this year, in my day job life, I am the special projects manager for the City of Providence's Department of Art, Culture, Tourism. And in that, we host an annual Pell Lecture on the Arts and Humanities event. And it's really exciting because she's actually our keynote speaker. And when I first heard that she was publishing this book, I just felt so called to the messaging. I am a poet as well. So I'm like, yes, let the poets govern. So that's a little long answer to what I'm reading. I'm truly just finished that. And I just started the first episode of the second season of Beef. Um, it's funny, I was like, oh, Beef has a second season finally. And I was with a friend who was visiting another poet, another author, who hadn't seen the first season. So I was like, oh my gosh, well, we have to start there. And I watched that first episode and I was just reminded about how good that pilot is. And so then it was cool to then watch this first episode of the second season. So that's what I'm watching. What are you reading and watching, if I may?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I haven't started it yet, but I am looking forward to watching the second season of Beef as well. I just finished reading Happy Land, actually, the Reading Across Rhode Island book, and I loved it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about it yet until we start talking about it for real. But I did just finish listening to that. I mostly listen to audiobooks. And then I started reading The Princess of Las Vegas by Chris Bojalian, I believe it's pronounced. I've seen his books like come through the library and be very popular, and I've never read one by him before. And this one is a sort of a thriller, it seems like, that centers on a woman who has a Princess Diana impersonation act in Las Vegas. And so far, I'm right at the beginning. So the thriller part of it hasn't really happened yet, but I think the narrator of the audiobook did a really good job of when it's in this main character's voice, she speaks like someone who is kind of stuck in a fake accent. So she does like a really good job of, she has an American accent, but there's certain phrases and words that she uses that sound like how Princess Diana would say something, and it's clear that like this person pretends to be another person every single night and is maybe having a hard time not slipping into the voice in her regular everyday speech, which I think is really like kind of intricate for an audiobook narrator.
Absolutely. That's cool. I'll have to add that to my list. I feel like it's been a while since I read a good mystery. So thanks for that rec. Also
Yeah.
curious to see how you feel about it as it ends as well.
Yeah,
But
I like I said, I just started it, but I feel like the popularity of the author and the high quality audiobook narrator bode well for the book. And then for watching, actually just last night, my husband and I watched a very interesting movie called Harvey from
mm,
1950. Have you heard of it?
I haven't.
So it's James Stewart, and he plays like a wealthy man who inherited the family fortune when his mother passed away. But when she passed away, it obviously affected him, and he now has an imaginary friend who is a 6-foot rabbit named Harvey.
Uh,
But the viewer never sees the rabbit. Um, and so it's James Stewart just kind of walking around with like his arm around no one and looking up at no one standing next to him to talk to him. And uh, there's a whole plot line where basically his sister is really embarrassed of him and wants to institutionalize him, but then because she's talking about a rabbit that no one sees, the institution institutionalizes her by mistake, and then it turns out that maybe the rabbit is real and it's like a mythological creature that's like a trickster. So it's a lot for a 1950s movie, and we were really surprised that it even got made, but it was kind of charming and really weird but fun, and yeah, we enjoyed it.
I love that. That's also going on my list. I love an old movie. I feel like in middle school my personality was Turner Classic Movies.
I love
And,
that.
and maybe kind of still is, but it's been a while. And I feel like as you just talked about those elements of, I guess I will say, like magical realism to a bit, I
Hmm.
feel like they were way more inventive and more imaginative when it came to older cinema. Whereas like now I feel like I'm longing for that. It's either all kind of prestige or like, I don't know. I think everything is striving to be prestigious in a way that I don't know if that's like harming or helping media, or I don't know if it's honest. But anyway, that sounds like a great movie that I would love to watch.
I know what you mean. After it ended, my husband, who has worked in the film industry, said, I can't believe that movie got made. And I was like, well, when this movie got made, there was just a bunch of guys running around a lot making like 15 movies a day. Like they were just like, okay, shoot it, shoot it, shoot it, done. Like so many movies were coming out at this point in history. And I'm sure there were a lot of them that were not good and a lot of them that were like higher budget, and then this one probably falls into like a weird category of it it somehow works. It's like a really weird idea, but it somehow works. And uh yeah, and I was just surprised that a movie from 1950 would have an element of like folklore in it, because I guess there's these creatures called pukas that are part of Celtic mythology, and they can appear as different animals, sometimes a rabbit, and they're kind of like tricksters. And the fact that this like 1950 movie picked up a piece of folklore and made like a whole charming tale about it, just I thought that was really interesting and not super common. So yeah, I can
Yeah.
recommend it.
Okay. Thank you.
I think you're the first poet I've ever interviewed. So I
Whoa.
wanted to, yeah. So I wanted to ask, what's it like to be a poet and how did you get into poetry?
Oh, yeah. I love that question. Well, I'll start with the second one. I got into poetry thanks to my wonderful English teachers in high school. I had a brilliant teacher by the name of Megan Thoma, who was a poet, and but not just a poet. She was a spoken word poet, and she introduced spoken word poetry to me and my classmates, and then actually facilitated an after school program that featured another mentor, now beloved friend of mine, Sarah Kay, who would come weekly and we'd write poems together. And I was like, I really like this. I wonder if I should keep doing it. And I did. And thankfully, here in Providence, Rhode Island, we have an incredible poetry scene that really started and is like anchored at AS 220's Providence Poetry Slam, or I rather should say the Providence Poetry Slam at AS 220, because we always joke that we're not a nonprofit or an organization. We're just kind of like a group of poets who just get together on the first and third Thursday of every month to share poems on stage. And so I started doing that maybe in the ninth grade. And at the Providence Poetry Slam, we actually had a youth slam team that got to compete in the international poetry competition called Brave New Voices, which you might have heard about. It aired a season or two, I don't even remember, but like a few years ago, or not even a few years ago, many years ago now, HBO like got their hands on it and did a few seasons of it. So then it became really popular. But yeah, so then I got the opportunity to go to Brave New Voices as a teenager. And then as I got older, I started to coach young people to compete at Brave New Voices. So kind of like long story long, it's been really like a fun joy to one, be a poet, but also be a poet that immediately was like enmeshed in community. And I feel like that's really why I do it, why I know some of my like peers do it. At the end of the day, we just want to read each other's work and read to each other and for each other. And so, yeah, kind of like a beautiful moment in community brought me to like being a poet and just wanting to continue, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very cool that it's something that you've done since like ninth grade and you just loved it right away and have been doing it ever since. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely like I always say, especially to younger poets that are like, I love poetry and I really want to get back to it, or, I haven't written in a few years. I'm like, poetry is something that you can always come back to and always return to, and it's always there for you. And I think poetry is a genre that people, I mean, it is a genre for anyone. That's how I love that there's like a low barrier for entry, because I feel like the arts should be that way. But at the same time, I think because anyone can write a poem, sometimes people either, I don't know, dismiss it, or they are really excited to be like, well, I don't get it. And so I really love to kind of like show people like, well, no, you can get it. There's a poem. I fiercely, fiercely believe that there is a poem out there for everyone. That they just haven't encountered it. They haven't read it yet. They haven't heard it yet. But it's there for them. And yeah.
That's funny. Librarians say the same thing about books. Sometimes people come into the library and they say, "Oh, I'm not really a reader. I don't really like to read." And we're, we try not to be too pushy about it, but we're pretty confident that there's a book out there for them. And I mean, last summer, our teen librarian here in Coventry, she had a teen who was I think like a relative of someone who like lives around here. So they were just visiting and they signed up for the summer reading program because there are a lot of like fun things to do. But he said, I don't really read. I don't like to read. And Kylie, the teen librarian, said, you know, the you set your own goal. So if your goal is to read one book and you read one book, then you have reached your reading goal for the summer. And he set the goal of one book and he ended up getting into manga and ended up reading like 80 books that
Oh,
summer.
that is, I love that. That is like the
Yeah.
best story. And I'm sure like Kylie the librarian felt like, you know, so proud, but that's the work it takes. Sometimes it's like, yeah, come to this how you wish, but there is something for you. And I love to like hear a story of a young reader who's like excited to read because yeah, there's a whole host of genres. My dream wish is like to actually be a librarian, and so I feel that way about books as well. So yeah, I just really relate to that and appreciate that anecdote.
Are there any poets or specific poems that in particular have influenced you?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. One of my favorite poets is a poet by the name of Lucille Clifton, and her work is so striking, and also very, I guess I'll say, finite. She was an incredible short form writer, who really, when she arrived to the page, she one makes sure her readers stay there, and she also reveals like, I will say all that needs to be said in this poem. And so she's just really just someone who I feel like I've always looked up to, just because I also come from like a slam poetry background. The thing about like being a youth poet competing in poetry slams are like a part of spoken word culture, but they often get conflated. And so slam is like a competitive spoken word, I guess, tournament event, however you would call it, whereas spoken word, of course, is just the spoken word of poetry, reading poetry out loud, memorizing it, performing it. But, you know, when you start competing, it becomes a slam. And so through growing up in slam, it was always like, you know, you have 3 minutes, or it was actually 2 minutes and 50 seconds to write a poem. And, you know, that may seem short in time, but actually like makes for a page poem. And so I feel like growing up, I think I would be even resistant to my own writing practice because I'm like, well, I actually just said what I wanted to say right now. Or, you know, I said it in so few lines, or I said it in a page, is that okay? And then I like came to Lucille Clifton, who again is like so many people's North Star, no doubt, but definitely one of mine. And I'd say I quote this all the time, like truly to colleagues and to friends, and I'm sure they're like, okay. But she has like a lot of famous ones that people know and love. But one of my favorites is it's called "Why Some People Be Mad at Me Sometimes." That's the title, and I hope I remember this correctly. But it's, they ask me to remember, but they want me to remember their memories, and I keep on remembering mine. And just that again says so much, right? In just a short amount of words. And I just really feel like that's just like you know, a master of craft and language and poems. And so she's someone who I really, really love and look up to. I have a little t-shirt with her face on it. I also have a t-shirt with Gwendolyn Brooks's face on it, who's another incredible poet who I feel like, you know, there are those poets who I guess you read in school or maybe you encounter in a workshop setting and you're like, oh, this is cool. But then when you rediscover it as you get a little older or in the context of your focus as a poet or however, it just becomes, yeah, all the more impactful. And yeah, I remember I feel like reading, maybe being introduced to Gwendolyn Brooks sometime in middle school, and then coming to her as an adult or like an older teen, and being like, this is amazing. And, one of her most popular poems, Gwendolyn Brooks, is We Real Cool. And that's also another short but super impactful poem that I feel like changed a lot in the way contemporary Black poets express themselves. And so, yeah, those two are some of my North Stars in terms of like, I guess, ancestors and those writers who have departed but have left us with so much.
I love that the first poem that you mentioned is very succinct, and I totally know what she means.
Yes.
Like, that's a perfect way to encapsulate that type of misunderstanding between two people. And it reminds me of, I think, when I was in probably high school, when we first started kind of learning about poetry. And I think the definition was something about like capturing a moment of emotion, which
Mhm.
I've always remembered as a very weird definition for something, because everything else that has a definition is a very like, it's a lot clearer when something is defined, but for poetry it's so kind of vague and magical that it's just like capturing a moment of emotion. I'm sure it's more in depth than that, but yeah, I really like that.
I love that. I love that you yeah, just shared that because it makes me think of the definition of poetry, and I feel like I've never even encountered that, but it's so true. How can it be defined if not but that capturing a moment of emotion? Wow, that's so poetic. Not to use that word, but I'm like, whoa, it's so funny. It's like sometimes me and my friends sit around and I'm like, someone should put a mic on. Because I think like our poetry, when we talk about poems, we full on geek out. So I will be taking that back, Lauren, to the crew and just to let them know, like, wait, poetry as a definition. Have we ever thought about this? And yeah, I don't know. I really appreciate that as a
Yeah,
poet.
I mean, I can't take credit for it.
Right.
That was probably my freshman year English teacher, Mr. Carr.
Mr. Carr. Shout out to Mr. Carr. Shout out to Miss Thoma. Incredible.
Hello, this is Editing Lauren. I looked this up after the interview, and I think the definition of poetry that my freshman year English teacher, Mr. Carr, gave us was this quote from poet William Wordsworth. Poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotions recollected in tranquility. My brain, plus about 20 years, paraphrased that down to capturing a moment of emotion. Now that Mr. Carr and William Wordsworth have their due credit, on with the conversation. So, you mentioned that you also work for the Providence Department of Art, Culture, and Tourism. Can you talk about the work that you do around the state?
Absolutely. Yeah. So for my day job, I guess I'll say I'm the special projects manager for art, culture, tourism here at the city of Providence, as we lovingly like to just say ACT. So I'll just say ACT. And in that role, I administer grants to artists and artist communities and nonprofits. We create programs that resource artists of all genres. This year, actually, I created kind of new programs that specifically address the lack of programs for literary artists, both locally and kind of just regionally and I guess nationally as well. And we do a little thing called PVD Fest, which you may have heard of it, but that's our like big, I think, like if stop someone on the street, that might be what they know the most. But we produce large scale events, festivals. But my favorite part of the work is definitely like our artist community and our cultural community and connecting with those folks more than anything else, helping people advance like their events, or think about projects. So yeah, I always say like cities don't have to center the arts, but Providence is a place for at least like 22 years. I think our department is, that's our age now, that has said like, no, the arts and culture and I guess tourism, will be centered in the narrative of the city of Providence. So it's, yeah, just a really special place that I'm proud to work at, especially as someone who is from Providence, grew up in Providence, really loves our artist community. And I feel really just lucky to just be in a place that I can resource them, point them to new partners, introduce them, also get them out of Rhode Island in terms of like having folks see the breadth of our talent. And so, yeah, so it's a very special place to be. But every day there's a new challenge to solve, and it's fun. It makes it fun. It keeps me awake. uh,
Very cool. I do think Providence is a very artsy city. So if that's already my perception, then that means you're doing a great job.
Great. Okay, that's huge. And I would agree with you. And that's what we like love to lean on. I mean, the artists here, just the scene, and just we have such a fantastic DIY culture here in the city, but I feel like across the state as well. Of like, we want to see it, so we're going to do it and we're going to create it. And it's going to be so weird. It's going to be avant garde. It's going to be, it's going to be all of the things. And so I'm glad that's the rep, coming from Coventry and other places.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of arts projects, how does it feel to be the 2026 Reading Across Rhode Island Honorary Chair?
It feels so cool. But honestly, it's an honor. I love reading across Rhode Island. Like, truly, one of my favorite literary events I've attended in Providence, and this is as someone who has produced literary events in Providence, was last year's Reading Across Rhode Island keynote event. And so I've been a really big fan of the work. And so when I was asked, I was so charmed and honored to get the call or, be asked. And it's been really, really wonderful. I mean, it is such an incredible initiative. Kate, who, leads it, is incredible, and just like she's like a singular person, obviously supported by an incredible team and a lot of different committees that help and uplift the work. But it's a dream. There's something about it. I know like other states have um, this initiative and a statewide book and all of that, but there's something really special about the smallest state being one big book club.
Yeah.
And so I just really value that. I remember partaking in reading across Rhode Island before even knowing. Just in college, I didn't realize that like our campus wide book was tied to reading across Rhode Island. And I was like, well, I want to read the campus wide book. And I remember doing that my freshman year and then wanting to do it my sophomore year. And I think even my junior year, that's when I really was like, wait, let me present, let me be a part of the larger conversation. I actually have so much to say about books. I want to talk with people who, you know, what did they think about this book and that book? There's one book that we read that I remember being like, oh my gosh, one day I will be resourced enough to make this into like a mini series or cinema. And then years later, who did it first? Oprah Winfrey.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
and I was like, man, Oprah, like, get out of here. I had this idea in Providence, Rhode Island. And it's just like you stole it. But yeah, it's just been such a delight and such a cool thing to be a part of, honestly, more than anything else.
Well, now you have something to talk to Oprah about if you ever meet her.
Exactly. I'm gonna be like, girl, I have a bone to pick with you. It's gonna be like security. Uh, but yes, it's so cool to just have a state be aligned with a singular book and the deep programs that are offered through Reading Across Rhode Island's programs and the community connections that they also steward is just really, I just find myself being really impressed. And becoming honorary chair this year has like helped me learn all of the efforts beyond the like singular event I attended last year. And I was like, this was great. This was really cool. But then to know, oh, like you're speaking with this community and thinking about how the book, impacts systems that are relevant to Rhode Islanders, or, just kind of that deep thinking is just such a dream just to witness, never mind even to have some opportunity to be a part of this year.
And this year's RARI, as we call it, selection is Happy Land by Dolen Perkins-Valdez, which, as I mentioned, I just finished reading. Did you want to give our listeners like a little overview of what the book is about?
Yeah, Happy Lands is this incredible novel featuring this protagonist by the name of Nikki. And Nikki is like a very contemporary Black woman doing her thing in DC, and then gets called into this, guess I'll say, not ancestral land, but this rural community in North Carolina that she has no idea about. And she goes back to the home that she never went to. The settlement of like formerly enslaved people who did their own thing, creating a better world for themselves and their community. And so through her journey, she just goes through ancestry and also grief and understanding what the past is. And then she really begins to understand not just the relationship between her and her mother, but her mother and her mother's mother, so her grandmother. And through that, then it takes us kind of on this like timeline journey where they touch, they're going deep, kind of like, I guess I would say Reconstruction era, or maybe before that, post Civil War. And it just follows the lineage of these family members against all of like the griefs and the turmoils and the violence of, a white supremacist America. They're like escaping the Ku Klux Klan, and they're, trying to just make a better place for themselves. So they find themselves in the hills of North Carolina, and it becomes this community of free Black folks. And I remember just, yeah, coming across this book, I was like, wait, like, is this real? Is this, like, obviously I know it's this novel, but feeling just really called to this protagonist who really did the work to understand where she comes from and what kind of people she comes from. And yeah, it's a really, I would say, just a powerful litany, if you will, on the resilience of the formerly enslaved, um, and the resilience of Black people, honestly.
I agree. I actually was a history major in college, and even before that, since we're already talking about high school, in high school I took AP World History and AP US History, and no one ever told me about the Kingdom of the Happy Land. So that was an instant Google as soon as it like introduced that in the book. I was like, is this a real thing? I couldn't believe that that's such a unique story from American history that more people should know about. So I'm really glad that this book exists, even if it's just to get people to Google that. But also, it was a really good book.
Yeah, and I love that you say that because it's so true. It's like that blend. Because even me, like, as I was reading this, I had the same thing of like, wait, why wasn't I taught this? Why did it? And I also took a push, right? Or just even, I don't know, when I think about Black folks in this country and in places of one, togetherness, connectiveness, and resiliency, you hear about like, Tulsa and just different communities like Black Wall Street, and those stories, which still feel very contemporary, right? Because they're still like 1900s. Whereas to like go kind of back, or, as she's uncovering, I think she starts in like 1870, and understanding like her great 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 grandparents at this time, And I found myself being like, wait, I wish I knew this. It's so funny because this is not related, but kind of related. But I recently watched The Testament of Anne Lee and loved it, which is about the Shaker community. And the Shakers were, it's like a religion that was created by this woman by the name of Anne Lee. It's like a recent film. It's starring Amanda Seyfried. And similarly, I was like, wait, I know this is a true story, but like, this is fantastical, right? There's something about these stories of one community and history, and again, that resilience that just become almost like magic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the book opens with the poem Our Land by Langston Hughes. As a poet, why do you think the author chose to begin the book with that?
I feel like, yeah, the author chose the Hughes poem just one as like kind of a grounding for what this story would be, because there's something so powerful about the word land to begin with, right? And obviously the book being Happy Lands, we don't realize until we start it where it's like, oh, this is an actual place. So there's something about one cementing us into the place, but also the poem is also a dream, right? We should have a land of sun, of gorgeous sun, and a land of fragrant water, where the twilight is a soft bandana handkerchief of rose and gold, and not this land where life is cold. And that's just the beginning. And it's also just like a calling into what could be and a calling into what we create and what we could create. So to me, it's also about possibility. And yeah, it kind of ties back in like, I don't know if she knew this, obviously she didn't, but I'm like, even the culture of like Langston Hughes as it relates to Rhode Island is also just called out to me as soon as I read that poem. Langston Hughes is like estate is here, quiet as it's kept. And there's like an entire community poetry reading that happens around Hughes's work. And so this was actually a new Hughes poem to me. But I would say it's all about the things we should have and how easy it could be if we had spaces and places to call our own.
I don't think I knew that Langston Hughes's estate was here.
It's wild. It's like my favorite Rhode Island fact. I was like, I'm going to find a way to sneak this in somehow. So I honestly love that you asked the Langston Hughes question. Yes, the Langston Hughes estate is held by Ramona Bass, whose late husband, George Bass, was Langston Hughes's assistant, friend, and confidant. And they both, Ramona and George, are like pivotal members who went to Brown University and started the Rights and Reasons Theater, which is like the space for Black theater at Brown. And in that understanding and in that history, honestly, it wasn't until I came to art culture tourism where I got to meet them. It was always a fact I knew through one program I attended at the Athenaeum in Providence. And Ramona got up and she said this, and this was years ago. And then I came into the work, and then I met the community poetry reading and that crew and understanding the connection. And again, I feel like, yeah, Happy Lands is so cool because at the end of it, I just remember being like, man, we have these stories in Rhode Island, but we're not telling them. And that has just always been my thing as not just a poet, but a person who cares about stories, who like is obsessed with pop culture, who, you know, loves talking about narrative. And so, yeah, I just found that like a cool, like kind of tidbit and a callback that I guess is not even a callback because, you know, nobody really knows other than a few Rhode Islanders and the people listening to this episode. Um, yeah, it's a really cool factoid. And I wish there was a little like museum, or I wish there was a little more that we can do to talk about that prominence, because it is really special and uniquely Rhode Island. And then again, it speaks to Black folks who come from, like, again, enslaved folks who are crafting better worlds for themselves, even still to this day, but also definitely like back in the 60s and beyond that. So in the story of the Harlem Renaissance, there's also, you know, a little Providence piece to it, very small piece to it, but I'm proud to know, even though I have nothing to do with it, of course, but I'm just proud of that fact.
That's very cool. I
Yeah.
did not know that.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know about reading across Rhode Island that we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I'd love the readers to know that, like, again, this is a book we are reading and engaging with throughout the year. And I think sometimes I know friends were like, oh, did I miss the event? Did I miss the event? You know, the big kind of culminating event that Dolen Perkins-Valdez attends and is the keynote at. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. We're still reading, we're still talking about it. Some of my homegirls, they have this like book club that I'm like kind of trying to get them to read it. I'm like not in the book club, but now that I'm like, wait, maybe I joined the book club to influence you all to read it. But just to say, it's like a book that's always there for you, and to pick it up. And I really, really want to shout out and just highlight the work of Ocean State Media as well. They have just been incredible, as one, a partner, but really helping Reading Across Rhode Island, and the Center for the Book to engage with community deeper and to really challenge how we talk about books and how we think about curriculum. And I guess it's just a long invitation to, like, if you're listening to this episode and you haven't read the book yet, read the book and, like, I don't know, hit me up. I'm available, or I'm findable. And I'm really excited to continue to meet folks as I can throughout the state at different events that support the book. But again, I feel like Reading Across Rhode Island to begin with is like one invitation for us all to be on the same page, quite literally and figuratively.
Well said. So, we wrap up the show with a segment called The Last Chapter, where we talk about a library or bookish related question. And today I wanted to ask, what is a poem or a line from a poem that has always stuck with you?
One of the poems that I've just been thinking a lot about recently is a poem called Pretext by Muggs Fogarty from the collection of poems Sex Camel. And there is a line there, kind of towards the end, that says, I am not sad. I'm a sad song yet unsung. And then it goes into this moment of I'm slipping in on my own wetness right off the world's edge. I can't look people straight in the eye anymore. I know they know I'm thinking too much about Amelia Earhart, lost in time, or the ocean, or the desert. How she gets to be remembered for being brave, how she gets to be loved while still disappearing. And that's just the line that I feel like has really, one, followed me and almost like haunted me in a warm way. It just, every time I hear it, it knocks me out. And so that's just a poem I really love, from a poet I really love, from a Rhode Islander too. So maybe some extra points there.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
definitely, I'll be thinking about that for sure. I'll have to pick up
Yes.
that book.
Yes. Yeah.
I have to say, unfortunately, that I never really got super into poetry.
Yeah.
So I have a very limited knowledge of poems, but one that I've always loved is The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats.
Ooh.
And it's a poem about just building a small cabin on this little island in a lake and living a peaceful life. And actually, when I studied abroad in Ireland, and my mom came out to travel around with me before I came home, and we went to see the Lake Isle of Innisfree that Yeats was writing about, and it's actually like in someone's backyard, so you can't
Wow.
actually fully get to it, but we were able to kind of look at it through some trees, and it was so peaceful. And my favorite place to go to with my husband is Lake George in New York, and so that poem was read at our wedding, which was in Lake George.
Wow.
So that's
That's
the
amazing.
poem I think that has definitely stuck with me the most, because it sounds or reads very peacefully and is very nice. So
Yeah.
it's not as deep as the line that you read, but it is I think a very nice little poem.
Yeah, I mean, now I'm going to go read it, and I'll have to send you the full version of Pretext, just for you to read it, because maybe this is the poem that's out there for you. Um,
Yeah, I'm sure there
yeah,
are. It's
yeah,
just one of those things that once it was no longer required of me in
yes,
school, I
of
didn't
course.
continue to pursue it. But yeah, maybe it's time.
Just maybe. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your extremely busy day.
Oh my gosh, it's the honor is mine. Thank you.
Overdoing It is proud to be a resident partner of the Rhode Island Center for the Book and brought to you by library staff and community members all around the Ocean State. The project has been funded in part by the Rhode Island Office of Library and Information Services. If you'd like to share your answer to our last chapter question, send us an email at overdoingitpod@gmail.com or find us on Instagram at overdoingitpod. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review us to help us reach more Rhode Islanders. Thank you for listening, and this has been another episode of Overdoing It, the Rhode Island Library Podcast. We're overdoing it, but you're doing just fine.